space, but there is a little of immediate concern to the taxpayers. And so I encourage you, as I would encourage the next administration, to provide NASA with a role that is not only about the future, but it is also important in the present. It could be a geopolitical role that improves our national image. It could be a role that improves our competitive position. It could be a re-emphasis on those programs in NASA that are of demonstrable interest to the taxpayer, like earth science or like aeronautics. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fisk. Dr. Moore.
Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Minority Member, and members of the committee, thank you for inviting me to testify today. Mr. Chairman, as you and your colleagues know well, the world faces significant and profound environmental challenges. Shortages of clean and accessible fresh water, degradation of terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems, increases in soil erosion, changes in the chemistry of the atmosphere, declines in fisheries, and above all, rapid pace of substantial changes in climate. Information from NASA and NOAA's environmental satellites is critical to addressing these problems. But as a result of significant cuts over several past budget cycles, the growth in the cost of accessing space and in the development of instruments, and inflation generally, we find ourselves with a growing mismatch between needs and resources. The fiscal year 2009 budget for NASA begins to readdress some of this imbalance, but much more will need to be done for many budget cycles to come. Let me now turn to some of the questions that you ask. Is NASA headed in the right direction? And what changes or challenges or changes would I recommend? The President's fiscal year 2009 budget for NASA includes a major new initiative in earth science and applications, including a plan to provide $910 million over 5 years that addresses to varying degrees the decadal survey's nearest term recommendations. In addition, the budget provides for the restoration for the ozone limb sensor to the NPOS preparatory program, to integrate the Earth Radiation Instrument Series back onto NPP, and to support identification of a possible flight for the total solar irradiance sensor. All of this is very welcome news, but I have several concerns. The initiative's funding for earth science comes, as Dr. Fisk noted, at the expense of other NASA science programs. Approximately two-thirds of the additional $910 million for earth science are obtained by drawing resources away from the other science areas in the Science Mission Directorate. As I will note in my next point, earth science requires an ongoing commitment of funding at a higher level that is provided in the FY09 budget runout, and a simple redistribution of resources will not be a long-term solution. As has been noted by members of this committee, NASA is being asked to accomplish too much with too little. What is needed is an increase in the overall top-line budget for NASA, which in turn will allow an increase in NASA science budget. Let me illustrate the point. This I provide in my testimony, and it's simply an update of what was in the decadal survey, where we looked at the past 10 years in constant FY06 dollars. We've now updated this graphic, looking at the past to now include the future, and that is to look at the proposed budget FY08 as well as the FY09 and the 5-year runout. In FY06 constant dollars, the runout slope turns negative after 2 years. This simply says that we really are not yet on a path to addressing the recommendations in the decadal survey. I am encouraged, of course, and I must be encouraged about the renewed emphasis on earth science. However, without additional resources, there is a limit to what management's best intentions can accomplish. The NASA Earth Science Program is doing what it can with the resources it has been given. It is not being given enough to accomplish what is expected of it, and more importantly, all that the nation needs. What further challenges do I foresee for NASA in the earth science, and what would I recommend to address those challenges? If you look at the proposed response to the decadal survey, you see that 3 missions, other than the venture class, 3 missions are being recommended from the first set of 4 missions that we recommended. 1 to fly in 2012, dealing with soil moisture, 1 to fly in 2015, dealing with sea ice, and 1 to fly in 2017. So by 2017, we will have flown off 3 of the 17 recommended missions. The overall program recommended by the decadal survey is simply not being adequately implemented. I would like to suggest 2 challenging and important actions. First, for both the Science Mission Directorate and the Earth Sciences Division, there should be a congressional plus-up above the President's request. Congress did this last year, and the result was particularly positive since it served not only to achieve the direct benefits one might expect, but it also encouraged industry to begin to invest anew in the technologies relevant to the missions recommended by the decadal survey. For the Earth Sciences, the target should be in a greater implementation of the missions recommended, as well as particular technology investments in the missions in the 2013 and 16 time frame. Finally, dealing with the reauthorization, we need to view NASA and particularly Earth observations in the overall federal structure. A key to making more efficient use of scarce budget resources is to develop a comprehensive approach to Earth observation from space. The Decadal Survey Committee expressed great concern that the nation's civilian space institutions, NASA, NOAA, and the USGS, are not adequately prepared to meet society's rapidly evolving Earth information needs. These institutions have responsibilities that are in many cases mismatched with their authorities and resources. Institutional mandates are inconsistent with agency charters. Budgets are not well matched to emerging needs, and shared responsibilities are supported inconsistently by the mechanisms of cooperation. It is important, I believe, that OSTP execute promptly the recommended study for a substantial overall comprehensive plan for Earth observation. I'm encouraged that they're doing this. I simply worry that the time is running out in this administration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. As you all have heard, there's a vote on. I think if we move with some dispatch, Dr. Squires and Dr. Burns, we can get your testimony, and then the committee will stand in temporary recess, and then we'll return to direct questions of the panel. So, Dr. Squires.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Minority Member, and members of the subcommittee, thank you very much for the opportunity to appear today. In my opening remarks, I would just simply like to make 2 points. The first point is that this budget contains a lot of good news for solar system exploration. The budget includes a healthy increase in funding for research and analysis. R&A is important. It's where the nation reaps the benefits of the missions that NASA flies. It's where data get turned into scientific knowledge. So this is a very welcome development, and I applaud it. It's also good news that there's funding for 3 new robotic missions to the moon to be launched by 2014. This renewed emphasis on lunar science is consistent with NASA's focus on the moon as the primary target of the vision for space exploration. And perhaps the best news of all is that the budget also calls for the development of an outer planets flagship mission for launch in 2016 or 2017. This mission would be sent to the Jupiter system, to Saturn's moon Titan, or to Jupiter's moon Europa. And any one of these missions would have enormous scientific potential. So there's a great deal here to be pleased about, and I commend Dr. Stern and the agency for what they've accomplished. But there's some bad news, too. And my second point is that I'm concerned about the dramatic cuts in the budget to NASA's very successful program of Mars exploration. In presentations to the science community, NASA has described a very exciting future program of Mars exploration. In 2013, an orbiter would be launched to study the upper atmosphere of Mars. In 2016, another major science mission would be launched. And then, in 2018 or 2020, the long-awaited Mars sample return mission would be sent on its way. The reason that I'm concerned is that the budget doesn't appear to contain enough funds to carry out this program. Now, I say this based not just on my own intuition, but on a study that I participated in recently that was chartered by NASA and that was done in response to a request from the Office of Management and Budget. In order to fly the Mars sample return mission by 2018 and 2020, our study concluded that a few $100 million would have to be spent on technology